This is the Townsend Lab Sphere L22 microphone. It's just one microphone, as you can see, but you can actually do dozens of coveted microphone models on it. Maybe you want the power of the Sennheiser MKH416 model, like you can hear me on now. It's arguably the most widely used microphone in voiceover, like for movie trailers and commercials. Or how about the Neumann U87 AI model, which they just added in this latest version of the software, which I've been nagging them like for a while. I'm like, come on, a lot of voice actors want to use this mic. They use it in all the feature films, like in Pixar movies and video games and all. It's the most widely used, coveted $3,000-ish microphone that all voice talent want. They just now added it and it sounds great. Or maybe you're a podcaster or a streamer and you're in a room that doesn't sound as good. You don't have a booth or anything like that, obviously. That'd be kind of weird if you're like, hey, I'm gaming in a booth. But anyways, the popular Shure SM7B model, which I'm talking on right now, would be great at your desk in your room, which models the very popular mic, or which they just added, the RE20 model, arguably the most used microphone in radio. So as a voice actor who works in commercials, promos, video games, animation, I'm going to be covering this mic specifically for voiceover. We'll be doing some shootouts that compare their model to the actual mic. We're going to go through tips and tricks on how to get it dialed in just on your voice and in your environment. And I'm going to cover all of the new features and amazing models that are really good and specific for voiceover. If you're considering this mic, or if you already got it, there's going to be some great tips in here on how to dial in your sound. I'm going to be covering a lot in this video. Now, if you want to skip ahead to anything, if you're just like, I know everything, Jordan, I just want to hear sound samples, or I already own this mic, I want the tips, everything is marked in the timeline below and or in the description. So check it out. So let's say you're considering getting this microphone, but you're like, what do I need to hook it up? All you need is a preamp and or audio interface that has 2 microphone input channels or 2 preamps built into it. Now, digitally controlled audio interfaces are ideal. What does that mean? That means you can control the preamps on your computer digitally. For example, the Universal Audio Apollo audio interfaces, RME Fireface interfaces, also the Apogee Duet. Those are the main ones that have digital preamps. Now, if you don't have a digital preamp, don't worry, it's okay. You could still use this mic. Like if you have a Focusrite Scarlett or an Audient interface, you can use this mic. It just has a built-in calibration mode. You need to reference the manual or look up some videos. I'm not going to run through calibration on this video because that's not really what this video is entirely for, but it is totally doable. It is usable and it will still sound great. It's just a lot easier to manage and control when you have a digital interface. Now, the other requirement is if you want to use this mic to be your main mic and you want to have a fixed model, you're like, I want to use the U87 on a Source Connect session. So a session where they are tapped into your computer for a voiceover session and recording you live. Your only option right now is the Universal Audio Apollo series. You can technically do it if you have like an RME or any other audio interface and then route your audio into your DAW, load the Townsend plugin to turn on the mic modeling, and then send it out of your DAW into Source Connect. You can do it if you know what you're doing, but it's kind of going to be a pain in the ass. So your best bet is to honestly just get a Universal Audio series. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So you're probably asking, why 2 channels, Jordan? Like, I record in mono, and isn't 2 channels like stereo? And voiceover, they're like mono, mono, mono. Never do stereo. Well, I know. Trust me, I get it. The reason, though, is because this has really fancy modeling, and I'm not being facetious. This has very good modeling to where there are 2 mic capsules. It's literally like 2 mics in one on this thing, to where it's not just listening to the front, it's also listening to the back. And it's taking the entire room and its entire environment into consideration when modeling all of these mic models accurately. That's what makes this such an accurate modeler compared to the other mics out there, mic modelers out there, is that it does listen in stereo and take everything into account before modeling it accurately. The only downside to consider is if you have like an Apollo Twin, which only has 2 preamps, and you're like, oh, I want to keep my TLM 103 hooked up all the time too. You can't do that unless if you get like an external preamp and then route that into one of the line inputs, or you're going to have to get an Apollo with at least 4 preamps on it, which the price does go up significantly on there. So just something to consider. All right, well, the mic comes in this big, beautiful, rugged case, so it's really good for travel. And you'll first just want to get your mic all mounted up in the shock mount, looking all sexy and pretty. Then you need to use this very special cable that comes with the mic, otherwise you won't get it to work. One end of the cable has a bunch of little pins in it that goes directly into the bottom of the microphone. And on the other end of the cable, you're going to have a front and a rear connector. Take the front cable and connect that to channel 1 and the rear and put it on channel 2. It's that easy. Next step on your digitally controlled preamp in your software, on the Apollo, you're going to right click on this channel 1 on the left. You might have it renamed to some mic that you're using, but you're going to right click and then click Link. If you have an RME interface, you're going to open up the Total Mix software on your computer, find the channel that front is plugged into. You're going to click on this wrench, and then you're going to click on stereo. And now you'll see that 9, the 10 went away. Why? If we open this back up, it's in stereo mode now. So then everything will be connected and routed through here on that channel. Next step is you want to download the Sphere installer. So go to the website in the link below if you need it. And when the installer runs, just make sure all of these boxes are checked. Next step, go ahead and apply Phantom Power to your interface. And for voiceover work, I almost always recommend having the high pass filter engaged to remove any of the boothy, closety resonance that builds up. You know, it doesn't sound so nice. And then you're going to go ahead and turn up the gain to make sure you have a nice healthy level. And you'll notice if you look down here, you're going to have the left channel going up higher than the right channel here. I know that looks weird, but this is the front of the mic and this is the back of the mic. So you want to make sure the front of the mic, this level is peaking around, you know, -9, -10 is a nice healthy level. By the way, do not wear headphones for this initial test because you're not going to have any modeling on. We're recording it raw going into your software, and then we'll be finding and dialing in the right mic model that you can use permanently in, for example, the UAD software afterwards. This mic has a lot of things printed on it, so you want to make sure the bullseye, this little circle with a dot in it, is facing you. And then in whatever DAW you use, you're going to make a new stereo track. So if you're using Twisted Wave, for example, you're going to do a new document, but instead of doing the default mono, you're going to change this to stereo. Open that and you'll see there's 2 separated waveforms. Weird. Now you need to make sure that the right channels are recording, so you're going to go into your settings, select channels under the devices section in the preferences. Ignore these channel numbers on my side because it's a little different, but yours is probably going to say mic line high Z1, mic line 2. You want to make sure both of those are checked and nothing else is checked in that order. And once that's ready, all you got to do is record. What? All right, so you hit record, but you're going to record and yada, yada, yada. Oh my God, this is the best sample ever. I am a professional voice actor. I know how to speak. Dooby-dooby-doo. The next step is you're going to go to your effects and you're going to load up the Townsend Lab Sphere. This is the plugin you installed earlier, not the 180, very important, but just the Sphere. You're gonna open that up and ta-da, now you get to pick your mic model. Now I'm gonna move away from Twisted Wave to Persona Studio One just for my demonstration purposes. It has no effect on the sound from Twisted Wave to Studio One. It's just easier for me to demonstrate all of the features in this DAW. So here is the interface, which you can do so much stuff in. It's insane. So there are a lot of settings you can play with here, but I'm only going to cover the stuff that pertains to voiceover. So if you don't even want to like click through mic models and turn any dials or anything, you just want some good voiceover presets, because presets can be a great starting point if you're overwhelmed or you just want to simplify your life. Click on the presets, and I actually designed some custom presets, but you just click on the presets, go to VO Jordan Reynolds. You can have one that reduces sibilance. There's one that's really focused. It's like really good for promo. Then there's a very intimate and warm and focused one that might be good for audiobooks or like a storytelling sort of vibe. Townsend Labs made a lot of quality of life updates in this version to where it's kind of easier to navigate around and actually get some more detailed info on all of these amazing mics that they offer. Let's say you have a mic loaded up and you're like, what was 67? Was that a Neumann? Why isn't there a Neumann logo? In short, for legal reasons, they can't just flat out list all the company names and everything, but the model numbers are very similar. So if you click on this info button here, oh, it's got a unique and it's really warm and it's a 60s version. So there's a lot of nerdy stuff in here. It's really cool. Here are the common voiceover ones. Under large condenser, the L87 Modern is modeled after the Neumann U87 AI, which is the most common mic used for video games and animation. There's a bunch of 87s in there. I'm not going to cover all of them, but Vintage is an older one, which is a little thin sounding for voiceover work. And then you have this TK model, which is actually a modded version of the U87, which adds a lot more bass, a little too much to be honest on some voices, but it actually has a very smooth top end where it's not as bright as the AI. But what I recommend is just playing your file and then just clicking through the mics as it plays. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy, right? Let's make it tougher. You need hard to find ink in a multi-pack in stock now at the lowest price possible. So you go to Staples, still easy. With an amazing selection, helpful associates, and Staples' low price ink guarantee, more people save on ink and toner at Staples. They have so many mics, but if you want to go over to the 416, that's under the hybrid menu, and it's the SD-416. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. And you're like, ooh, I like how that's sounding. So let's say you're just happy with the sound. You could just leave it there. There's literally nothing else you have to do. But if you really want to nerd out and fine tune some stuff, keep watching and we're going to go even deeper. So the very first thing you want to try adjusting is the pickup pattern. What is the pickup pattern? It's how much distance it's picking up, whether it's like really focused or whether it's really wide, or all around, which you're never going to use for voiceover. Now, you'll see that this one here is lit up in green, or I'm colorblind, but it's glowing. I think it's green. But whatever is glowing on whatever mic model you load up, see that? That means those are the original pickup patterns that were on the original mic. But what's cool about the Sphere is you can do any pickup pattern on any mic. It's insane. What works really well in a lot of booths or smaller recording spaces is it just doesn't sound great. The walls around you, it might be too muffled or it might be too echoey. And a way to improve upon that is to change the pickup pattern from the standard cardioid, which is kind of like this, over to a supercardioid, which is more like this. Or you could get even tighter and do hypercardioid. So these sections right here focus it even more on your voice and starts to ignore the space around you. It's not just going to like instantly remove reverb and echo in your room, but it will tame it to a degree and just sound a lot more clear and focused on your voice. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy, right? All right, let's see how it sounds a little more focused. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy, right? Let's make it even more focused. You need ink and toner, so you go to you need ink and toner. So the first thing you'll notice is that the higher frequencies in your voice will kind of get softer, but it does get more focused on your voice. So again, experiment with this, see how it sounds. But generally, supercardioid is a great starting point. Cardioid is always great too, but a lot of times supercardioid is kind of the sweet spot for a lot of people's voices in their booths from my experimenting. The next section here is the filter. And what this is these are different switches or settings that were built in on the original mic. And some of them don't even have any settings. But as you could see, this number 3 is glowing. And if you go to it, it's just a low cut filter. Now, what is the difference between a low cut filter and a high pass? So a high pass filter, which is what I recommend having on your preamp most of the time, it cuts out that mud and that bass in your booth. It's generally more aggressive in pulling out more frequencies below 100 hertz than a low cut would. Whereas if you look at a low cut filter here, it's a lot more gentle. And if we put a high pass filter on instead, it's a lot more aggressive as far as how much information it's taking out. You probably aren't going to use these filters a ton. They're generally like a more gentle high pass. Let's just think of it that way. But sometimes they do other things depending on the mic model that you load up. Now, the next tool we have in here is the axis knob. And seriously, this is like one of my favorite features in here. I almost want to rename it the reduce sibilance knob because what it does is if let's say your S's are sounding too harsh or there's just a bite to the mic that I have a lot of like in my voice, all right? And my sibilance is a little bit brighter than a lot of people's. This is a way to tame it by changing, if you turn this dial up, notice this little arrow that pops up? You can't grab it or turn it or anything, but it's controlled over here. And as you do that, it's changing the coloration and how direct the sound sounds hitting the microphone. Again, this is all done after you've recorded it. That's what's so cool. What we're doing here is finding the optimal tone on your voice and then applying that in your UAD software so you can have like a permanent mic modeled solution that's going to go right into your software or live on your Source Connect sessions. So a great example here, let's play this Still Easy line. Still easy. You're like, okay, maybe that sounds too harsh. Right now it sounds pretty good to me, but let's just say you want to tame that a little bit. Let's grab the axis. Just turn it. I mean, literally, if you just do it just like that. I know it looks like I did nothing here, but you can see this arrow move just a little bit. Let's listen to it again. Still easy. Okay, and to do an extreme, let's go all the way over here. Still easy. Now that sounds a lot of the life is gone. With an amazing selection, helpful associates, now it sounds a little too flat, right? Like the air is gone. So let's try like right around here. Still easy. With an amazing selection, helpful associates, and Staples low price ink guarantee, here's back to normal. Still easy. A little harsh. Still easy. Less harsh. Still easy. Less harsh. It's a great way to, you just don't have this kind of control with all these parameters with a physical mic. That's what's so powerful about this Sphere microphone and why I love it so much. So the next feature here is proximity. If you don't know what proximity is, it's when you get closer to the mic like this and hear all the bass build up and it's like more focused and everything's just kind of more intense. Or if I come back a little bit, there's less proximity. So that's what proximity is. You can emulate that with this proximity knob. So let's do an example. Let's say we have the U87 AI model loaded up here. We're happy with the cardioid pickup pattern and the axis. Let's see. Still easy. Let's maybe dial it off a little bit to tame the S's a little bit. Still easy. All right. But let's listen a little more. With an amazing selection, helpful associates, and Staples low price ink guarantee, let's say we're, it's sounding a little thin, okay? Or maybe I just want a bit more chest resonance, and it's not, because if you compare to the 416, listen, the 416 is going to naturally sound boomier than the U87. With an amazing selection, helpful associates, so the 416 essentially has more proximity, if you will. It sounds more focused. That's how it's designed. But let's say we want that resonance and proximity sound on the U87. We have control with this knob. With an amazing selection, helpful associates, and turn it up a bit. With an amazing selection, helpful associates, and Staples' low pricing guarantee, that's sounding more resonant. Let's switch back to the 416. With an amazing selection, helpful associates. Again, we're not trying to match the 416 tone overall. We're just trying to get that resonance that it has. With an amazing selection, helpful associates, and Staples' low pricing guarantee, more people save on ink and toner at Staples than anywhere else. That sounds nice to me. That's able to achieve just a little bit more of that resonance. Again, this isn't just a simple EQ. It's not just boosting it. It's taking all of the harmonics, how the mic sounds in the room that you're in, and it's emulating proximity very accurately. So in case you didn't know, Townsend Labs is a small company. Yeah, I don't know how they get all this done, software, but in this plugin update, they've not only done quality of life changes, making it more intuitive to use. They listened to the feedback and they applied it, but they also added this big new feature called Isosphere. I'm going to try to say that the best, like Isosphere, not Isosphere, not Usosphere, Isosphere. Let's check it out. So what is Isosphere? Well, it's a simple tool that allows you to reduce the crappiness, is how I'm going to word it, of common recording environments or not ideal recording environments. Now, a vocal booth is obviously the most ideal for a lot of voiceover work because it blocks noise from getting in. But as we know, a lot of voiceover booths and vocal booths, just the tone of them, the acoustics of them don't always sound great. They sound kind of boxy and woofy. Or if I'm recording in a, let's say, Aston Halo, or the Isovox, but you also have the reflection filter. Each model, if you are using one of these, you can click on this and it will essentially take the crap out. Let's look at the Chaotic Eyeball. And when you add it, yes, it does reduce echo, but usually at a cost, depending on the mic model in the room. There's a lot of variables, but these usually are at a cost of the essential tone. So where echo is now gone or reduced, but now the tone just kind of like sounds really woofy and muffled. It's really simple to use. You have to enable it to make it turn on and glow. You pick your filter type. So I'm using a vocal booth on this recording we have loaded up here. And the source distance is the distance from the front of the mic to your mouth. I generally recommend 4 to 6 inches. So you need to convert it here into centimeters. So I've converted 5 inches is 12.7 centimeters. So let's take a listen and see what it sounds like with it off on this phrase. More people save on ink and toner at Staples than anywhere else. More people save on ink and toner at Staples than anywhere else. So what I'm hearing is pretty subtle, but what I can also see is happening, if you look over here, it's changing the pickup pattern to hypercardioid by default, which is going to essentially cancel out a lot of the crap around it, but it's also taking in the coloration of the tone of these vocal booths in relation from the distance of the mic to your mouth with the source distance. So there's a lot of math going on here, a lot of algorithm juice. And unfortunately, I don't have any of Chaotica Eyeball to test. Those I'm sure would be much more noticeable because those add a lot of color. Like they really change the sound of the mic. Voice actors, you know what I'm talking about. When you make a pillow fort in a hotel room, when you're recording on the road, it sucks the life out of your mic. Yeah, the echo is gone, but it's like, it can make it sound really crappy. You can't just take an EQ and cut out the bass because then you're cutting out the bass in your voice. So this tool here, if you use this Townsend in one of these environments, should really aid in helping it sound a lot more natural and reduce the crappy side effects that come with these really cool products that exist. So let's say you're like, oh, wow, this is not enough features, Jordan. Can I like blend a mic? Well, you can. Boom! Dual mode. Yes. Dual mode. So to really summarize what's going on here, you can literally blend 2 mics with this mix knob. You see that? So let's say earlier, again, you settled on the U87 AI model. You're really happy with it. You can click the solo button right here just to do this one mic. You need ink and toner. So you go to Staples. Oh, you really like that. Okay, but maybe you want some, like we were talking about the 416, you want some bass. So let's go over here and load up the 416, which is under hybrid. Let's uncheck solo so it's not just using the U87. And turn this mix knob up and let's just hear how that sounds. go all the way. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. You're like, oh, I like how that sounds. Okay, uncheck solo, and let's blend it back to a 50 mix and hear how that sounds. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy. Ever want to know what a U87 and a 416, if they were making out, sounded like? That's what they sound like now. Mwah! So the next tool, which is only available in dual mode, is the off-axis correction. This is essentially, it is a more advanced version of the isosphere. Oh, I said it correctly. That we were looking at earlier. Isosphere simplifies these parameters for you. This gives you more control. Off-axis correction is reducing the undesirable tones or coloration that is in the recording environment that you're using. But before we enable it, what you want to do is make sure you have your mic tones dialed in just right. So let's say you're like, oh, I like the U87 in actually like a wide cardioid mode, and I like the 416 in like a super hypercardioid. I like these tones. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. But you're like, I'm hearing a little too much in my booth. You're gonna enable this, and this pickup pattern right here overrides these patterns, but it's honoring the color and the tone of these patterns, but then funneling it, if you will, into a pattern of your choice. This gives you fine tuning control. So let's say you wanted it just like almost at a super cardioid, but not all the way. And these same rules apply. The on distance is where it is from your mouth. So before that was 12.7. This mode, I highly recommend not changing this. These are used for different applications. Go ahead and play with it. You're not going to break anything, but definitely keep it on FF or free field for best results for voiceover. And the off distance is the distance of the object, or we'll just say wall, in my case, the window that you don't want getting into the recording. How far is that object that may be messing with your recording? Now, of course, there's infinite objects in a room. So you're like, I don't know, like that spider that's about to kill me up there. How many centimeters is that? Pick the most annoying, harsh object. So in a booth, for example, if you have a window, measure how far that window is to your Townsend mic. So in my case, the window behind my mic, that's creating the most harsh tones that I want to try to reduce in this recording, is actually 26 inches behind my mic, which I use the Googles to convert, and it is around 66, 67 centimeters. Now that we have those settings set, let's listen to the first phrase with this off. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy, right? Yeah, it just sounds more focused. Again, this is really subtle. Like if you are not wearing high quality headphones, you're not really going to hear a huge difference here. I hear a lot of that resonance, that boothy tones getting cut out, and a little bit of that harshness going down. No matter how nice the booth is, it's just unavoidable. When you record in a small space, there is coloration that's going to happen. And this tool is amazing what you can do with it. And the last feature we're going to cover here is proximity. This knob is identical to what we had earlier in the single view section. But if you go to dual view here, you also have this proxy EQ. Think of proximity EQ as your last resort. Let's say you're dialing this up and you're like, I'm just still you're not getting the results that you want. You can then use the proxy EQ to compensate for it. They affect the proximity in different ways, but at the end of the day, they're both affecting the proximity. How do the mic models on the Sphere compare to the original models? Let's do some testing. I recorded the same performance on both the Sphere and the original mic at the same time. All the samples are recorded into a UAD Apollo X8 that I had to borrow from my wife's studio, Mara Juno. She's very talented. Go check her out. I love her. And I did not keep the high pass filter on for these samples to capture the truest sound of both microphones. Now for each mic, I did dial in a custom, very gentle high pass filter that was true to the mic and didn't pull out too much bass. For example, the U87 has less bass than the 416. So I set its high pass filter to 55 Hertz, which is just enough. On the 416, for example, I set that high pass filter to 65 Hertz because it already has a lot more bass, and it'll sound a little too muddy if we leave all of that information in. But the same custom high pass filters apply to both the original mic and the Sphere model. Everything has been recorded in my Triple Wall Studio Bricks Pro booth, which has been acoustically tuned and has a lot of bass trapping. Before we start, you better put on your most expensive pair of headphones that you have. Otherwise, it is going to be really hard to hear some of these tiny differences I'm going to be pointing out. Let's start with the Sennheiser 416. This is a shotgun microphone, which means you can actually place it further back from your mouth than you would need for a large diaphragm condenser mic. So a little note, if you get a Sphere to replace your 416, you will actually want to have the Sphere a little bit closer than you were probably used to having the 416. Now here is a real 416. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy, right? Let's make it tougher. You need hard to find ink in a multi-pack, in stock now at the lowest price possible. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy, right? Let's make it tougher. you need hard to find ink in a multi-pack, in stock now at the lowest price possible. All right, so the immediate differences that I'm hearing are really subtle. The Sphere model is a little bit brighter and has a little less resonance in bass tones that the 416 is picking up. This could be for a multitude of reasons. For example, if I just adjusted my angle or my placement by like a half an inch in the booth, that could have, made it an exact match. But here is what is cool. In the Townsend plugin, all you have to do is tweak a few settings, and I got it sounding like 90 to 95% there. So let me show you what I did. Kept the pickup pattern the same, didn't change the filter. I took this axis and I made it just a tiny little bit off axis, and I boosted the proximity just a tiny bit to add a little bit of that presence and that resonance that we're hearing more of in the real 416. With this new tiny little tweak I made in the Townsend plugin itself, let's take a listen to that one phrase with the S's in particular. Pay attention to that. So here's the original 416. So you go to Staples, still easy. So you go to Staples, still easy. Is it 100% match? No. But is it like 90%? Yes. I mean, it's considering that is a shotgun mic and this is a large diaphragm condenser and you can get it sounding 90% there is astounding. It's a huge win on the most popular voiceover mic being the 416 for me. Next up, the brand new U87 AI model. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy, right? Let's make it tougher. You need hard to find ink in a multi-pack in stock now at the lowest price possible. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy, right? Let's make it tougher. You need hard to find ink in a multi-pack in stock now at the lowest price possible. It's really damn close, all right? But I am hearing a little bit of a difference, but it's not even good or bad. It's just for just pure comparison's sake, right? While the Sphere model sounds amazing and sounds very similar, it is a little bit brighter and doesn't quite have that resonance. A very similar result in the 416 comparison. Within the Townsend plugin itself, I was able to make some tiny tweaks just in an effort to get it to match the exact sound I was hearing from an original U87 AI. Same pickup pattern, no filter change, a little more off axis in the 416, and the proximity, I dialed that in a little more to bring up more of that resonance I'm hearing in the original mic. Let's take a listen on that one phrase, which has the S's in it, and it has some chest tones. So you go to Staples, still easy. So you go to Staples, still easy. It is so close, 90% plus there. All right, moving on to the RE20, a popular radio mic. It's a dynamic mic, which is different than the Sphere, which is again, is a large diaphragm condenser. A lot of people get dynamic mics if you're a podcaster or a streamer or you do radio and you're in a bigger room or a room that isn't like as dead and acoustically treated as a booth would be, for example. You hear a bit more of the echo. That's where dynamic mics are really popular. So I recorded this in my control room outside the booth, which has a lot more echo and reverberance in the ceiling. So I stood up to make sure my voice would echo in the room as much as possible. And since it is a dynamic mic and not a large diaphragm condenser, dynamics require that you get a little closer to it to pick up the full spectrum of your voice. So I placed the RE20 a little closer to my mouth and kept the Sphere at a normal large diaphragm condenser distance. Here we go. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy, right? Let's make it tougher. You need hard to find ink in a multi-pack, in stock now at the lowest price possible. You need ink and toner, so you go to Staples. That was easy, right? Let's make it tougher. You need hard to find ink in a multi-pack, in stock now at the lowest price possible. It honors the true essence is what I'm hearing of the original mic. Is it as spot on as the 416 and the U87 AI models? I would say no. This one I would say is like 70% there, 75%, but it still sounds amazing. Like it sounds like a great mic in general. But if you're trying to be pure and you want it to sound exactly like this one manufactured RE20 that you have, you are going to have to make a few tweaks. But what's cool, back to the Townsend plugin, I did a lot of experimenting and I was able to get this sounding really close to the original RE20 that we have here. So let me show you what I did. So I changed the pickup pattern away from the original cardioid over to hypercardioid to really give it even more of that focused tone. And the axis I took off a little bit and I boosted the proximity a tiny bit because what I was hearing in the model was it was noticeably brighter, not quite as focused sounding and tuned in like a dynamic mic has. But just for the sake of trying to get it to match this RE20 here, I made these tweaks and let's take a listen. So you go to Staples, still easy. So you go to Staples, still easy. So as you can hear, it's a lot more present. It's got the resonance and you don't hear as much echo in the room and no one is ever going to be able to hear like, that's not a true RE20. That sounds like a model. It ain't gonna happen. Final thoughts on the comparisons. If you can have a model that sounds 85 to 90% like the real thing and it still sounds great, who cares if it's not a 100% perfect match? Are you paying for an exact replica of that mic? Then just go buy the mic. Or are you paying for one mic, which can do dozens of mics and be damn near a replica, and it's just an amazing mic as is for the value? It's insane. Just something to think about. As a very picky and meticulous audio ninja myself, I can tell you that no other engineer is gonna ever hear you on a session and be like, you said you had a U87 AI, but this sounds like a modeled one. It doesn't sound. That's not going to happen. Like this sounds so close to the original that they're never going to be able to call it out. Your room and the environment you record in has a way more dramatic effect on how you're going to sound tonally than a model would with that same mic in that same room. In short, if there is a model of a mic that I want in the Townsend package, I would never buy it. Just being honest, like, unless the only argument I could say is for convenience. So for example, a shotgun mic, it's a lot sleeker and thinner, and you can kind of keep it out of the way. So if you don't like having like a mic up in your face or too close, or it's blocking your screen, the Sennheiser 416, for example, is a great option because it's a thin little pole that stays out of your way. But again, that's one small reason. But if you want all those models in one microphone in the form factor of pretty much a U87 AI size-wise, then the Townsend mic is a great option. For the price of this mic, the value you get is insane. The models are all incredibly accurate, and if they aren't 100% there, you can do a few things to dial it in and get it damn near 100%. And what's cool is that this mic is future-proofed because they just keep releasing models. And so it's not like you have to go buy some new hardware or a whole nother mic or even more software. They just keep adding models, and it's just a great convenience. It's one of the most innovative pieces of audio tech that I've seen in a very long time. I can't wait to see what models they add in the future. TLM 103, Townsend Labs, you listening? Pretty please, please. Here's some quick tips if you have a Universal Apollo Twin. If you use a preamp in the Unison slot and you want to use the Townsend, you can do that, but be aware, like if you load up an Avalon 737, that has a color to it, and it's running through that before it hits the Townsend plugin model. So therefore, you won't have a true, clean, unaffected sound when it hits the Sphere plugin. So what you want to do is actually load the Sphere plugin first, not in the Unison slot, but just as your first insert, and then load your preamp after that. That way you can still get the flavor of your preamp without affecting the modeling and the tone of the Sphere. It's not required. It'll still sound great if you use the Unison slot, but if you want the purest, true clean sound, which is what I've been using, then be sure to set up your plugins in this order on my screen. Also, if you don't have a Universal Audio and have the ability to just monitor one channel at a time on your software, instead of linking two channels as a stereo pair in your mixer software, you want to do two mono channels and then just have that one first mono channel being the front of the microphone sent to your headphone mix. That way you can listen to the mic and it doesn't sound weird and stereo-y. And in your DAW, you'll set up a stereo track, which you will route both of those mono channels into, where you can then apply the Sphere plugin to pick the mic of your choice. A huge thank you to Townsend Labs for sending me this mic to review. If you found this video valuable or enjoyable, please give me a like and a subscribe, and click on that bell if you want to get more videos like this in the future. If you already have or end up getting a Sphere L22 microphone and want me to dial in a custom preset or presets for you for your particular sound and your voice, hit me up at jordanaudio.ninja. And by the way, I'm developing an Audio Ninja Masterclass course where, Townsend mic or not, I will teach you how to use EQ, compression, denoising, de-essing for your voiceover setup to optimize your sound and to get you sounding as pro as possible. So if you're interested, there's a link in the description that can get you on a list to be notified as soon as it comes out. Jordan Audio Ninja signing off, and I'll catch you all in the next video.